wants to see himself and me, right? Is that what you want?
Yeah, I can see, I can see everybody. I've got a gallery view. I can see everyone. I just can't see myself.
Are you,
I think to have to allow the video function, so there is an icon at the
bottom left? There's a video, start
Yeah, I've
video.
done that. I've done it. It says,
screen.
right, it says FaceTime camera. I want my camera built in. Click to that. And I've looked at video settings. Don't worry about it, please. Sorry I even mentioned it. Get on with the Monterey Cypress.
Well, that's okay. We still got a couple minutes. We gotta wait. We're waiting for people to come on in here.
See, it says in video settings is FaceTime. That's what I want. Catch up my appearance. That's what I want.
They actually have that too, you know? It
Yeah,
just-
I haven't looked at that. I haven't tried it.
They have all that stuff. I know it's weird.
It's
Okay.
funny. Don't worry, please.
Sure. Okay, let me get in here.
Robert,
Yeah.
where you're starting, it looks like you're sketching with a paintbrush.
Yeah, I'm gonna do that today.
And
I'm gonna actually sketch with the brush. So,
you're sketching
You know-
on color paper or sketching paper?
this is just my sketchbook like I did last week.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay, we're doing thumbnails first.
last week I did that. I'm gonna do my value, but I'm gonna do it in with a brush this time instead of. I was gonna do that last week and I forgot.
Remember to record.
Thank you.
Hi, everybody.
Hi. Hi. Good morning.
Forward to the
Hello.
cloud. According to the cloud. Here we go.
Is that Daniel?
All right. Okay, so I'm going to do the Monterey Cypress. That's the number one. I'm just going to lightly draw myself out of the frame. I'm drawing with the brush. Same brush I always use.
Excuse me, Rob, could you mute everybody? Because there's a
Oh,
lot of
yeah.
background.
There we go. Okay, and let me zoom in a little bit more on Zoom. Zooming in on Zoom. Okay. Now, so I'm going to just determine on this what I want to, because a lot of times when you look, this is a nice photograph. I'm using the Monterey Cypress number one. It's a nice photograph. The photographer there is making a big deal about the shadows on the foreground, and I really like that. So, but I'm not sure I want exactly the same composition. So let's do some working out of that. Okay. So I've got my tree here. I'm just lightly drawing this in. Come up here. What I'm going to do is just kind of loosely kind of box in about where I want my tree to be. It really helps to kind of contain it first. And like that. And then in the background, I'm going to pull my mountains down. I don't want them to be right in the center. I want to be lower too. I want to give the tree more prominence. So this is why I do these. I'll just little hills in the background. And I don't know, I guess you could see some water in there, but it's so not a big deal that I'm not going to make a really big deal out of it. And we have a big rock about here. Something like that. And maybe another one over here. I like how that kind of keeps us in the composition. Okay. And we have lots of neat shadows. Even these rocks on the ground here can be nice. So it's a nicely composed photo. And some little rocky outcroppings in this area. When I draw with the brush, I really, very much like watercolor, I start off light and then work to my darks. We've got some other trees around this area, which act as a block. See how this hill was sort of taking us out. So I've got a couple of tree things, bushy things in here that are kind of keeping us back in. I like that. There's even the one coming in from the sky. I'm not so sure I need that. One of those things I'll, yeah, I'm not so sure I need that. Okay. And we do have a very dark, the foliage on the tree is very dark. So I'm gonna go ahead.
What color are you using on your brush?
You can, you know, when you're doing a value study, you can use any color. The color doesn't really matter. I happen to be using something called neutral tint. I don't even know what that is, but it looks kind of black.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. I just use it for doing value things. Okay. And so even the highlights on this are pretty dark. If you compare the highlights on the tree to how light the sky is, they're pretty dark. So I'm going to go ahead and just throw those on there first.
Rob, are you using memory blue neutral tint? Curiosity.
I don't even know. I don't think so. It just said neutral tint on it.
Okay. I have one from Memory Blue that says that. It's the first time I tried
really?
it. It's not being, yeah.
Oh, nice. Yeah. Ooh, what other colors do you have by them?
Hang on. I've got a few and I ordered a few more because they're like the creamiest thing on the planet. I love them. Love them.
Yeah, they are.
Let me see. Well, of course, you know it's in Italian. I have a tad yellow.
Yeah, yeah, yellow. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I have nickel titanate yellow. The names are hilarious, by the way, because they're in like 5 languages on here.
Oh.
Of course, I have Berlin blue, which is also known as Azul de Berlin. It's wild. I mean, it's a riot to go online and just look at all the 5 names for each color. It's really fun.
Okay, so you have some. I'd like to just tell me how you feel. If you really think they're creamy, maybe I'll just order me some. I've never really. I just used that one color, and I was really, really taken with it. So, and I'm not usually taken with watercolors. I mean, I thought I've tried them all, and then this one's really creamy. I guess I just go.
Yeah, well, I was trying it when we were doing the study, and you were putting up the primary, tertiary, secondary, tertiary colors, and I could see the difference when I was using the Memory brand, which was why it caught my eye.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's how you find out about them. It maybe there may be a day when I just only use them, and I'll promote them, and then they'll give me my own line of color, and they'll say Rob Sherrill Memory Blue, and I'll be famous. The imagination. Okay, so you see how I'm just laying this out, you guys, kind of light. Not going for my darks right away. And I've got some blocks back here of rocks and things. I'm just gonna block those in the shadow, leaving it white where there's light there. We got some shadow in that, and some neat shadows on the ground. You can cast with some other tree, I guess. And make yourself some nice little tree shadows on the ground there. And then what else? Lots of little rocky shadows. And there is, if you'll notice, the cast shadow from this tree. It's really skinny, and then it goes kind of fat out here. See? We'll darken that up. And then there are shadows on this mountain back here. Wow, they're very light. I think what I'll do is I'll just fill the whole mountain. Put a tone over the whole thing. And while I have it on there, maybe I'll get a little tone in here for some sky, especially at the top. We want it a little bit darker. And we have these clouds at the bottom too, which make it a little bit lighter. And now, as you can see, I'm losing, because the value of the sky is pretty close to the value of my tree. I'm losing my tree. No big deal, because I was going to go into that darker anyway. But as you can see, even the lights on this tree are very dark. That can be very deceiving. You're pinning trees, because you're looking at them and you might look at the very lightest little highlight on there and think that all the highlights are that light. But actually, a lot of trees can be very dark. This one now, I think that the shadows on this tree are, you know, they're too dark because of the camera. All right. I'm going to go ahead and just throw me another wash over this tree here. A little bit darker. And it doesn't really matter if your drawing isn't perfect. You're just going for a value study here. So believe it or not, my lights are going to be that. Let's see if I can. Maybe I have a highlight or something around there that's a little bit lighter. Okay. And then this is usually the point where I like to go for my darker darks. So I'm going to go heavy on the darks here. I know those are black, so I think I'm not going to use full force. So on your value scale, if you can think of your values as being from 1 to 10, it's probably about an 8 value. I'll just come in here on some of these darks here and just get myself some darks. Now I do like these light limbs coming over there. So that might be something I want to make an issue out of. I'll just kind of paint around these little light limbs here. Just letting myself know I want to make those lighter. So I'll have a light limb up against a dark tree, and then the darker limb up against a light background. A nice little eye catcher. Thingamabob. Okay. And then we have some little shadows underneath this, doing something like around like that. That's pretty good. All right, if you can think of this tree as kind of an umbrella shape, it does cast a bit of a shadow down onto these limbs, and I can really go for the shape of those limbs now. Really. Get into that shape. There's lights and shadows on there too. This limb over here casts a bit of a shadow on top of this. It's interesting how they get really fat up here. Wow. So, you know, doing a little value study gives you a chance to do a bit of studying on just the basic shape of this thing. Good. Some shadow down there. Shadow in there. And on the left side of this limb, shadow going all the way down, and so on. And then these shadows of the rock are pretty dark too. And they cast shadows onto the ground. Some of the other shadows. When the shadow of the rock can't get any other light into it, like right around here, for some reason, these are pretty dark. But if you look at the shadow on the rock over here, or some of these ones way back here, the shadows are very light. And that's because they're getting a lot of skylight and other kinds of light sources into them. So I'm going to make these trees here a little bit darker too, but not as dark as the theme tree up here in the foreground. And I can see mine are getting lighter because the water, because the paper drank up all the pigment. That darn paper, it's always drinking up the pigment. It's got a drinking problem. Okay, now I'm gonna pop a little dark right in the area, like right under the rocks here. Pop a little dark under there. See what that does? Even the shadows get pretty dark on the ground. Right underneath things, pop a little dark. And that's not full forest, that's not black, but it's pretty dark. And then maybe in some of the really little dark areas in here, not everywhere, but just some little hidden areas, usually right up and under, things like this. You'll get some pretty dark things happening. Those are good places to hit some darks. I'm also noticing the shadow down here on the ground is pretty dark. Not quite as dark as these we just put down, but pretty dark. So I'm going to go ahead and just throw down some patterns. Shadow from this rock. And I can get really picky if I want to and throw some of those shadows on the mountain back there. Or on the left-hand side of each hill. So you got this big hill right here, right? The left-hand side will catch a little bit of shadow. So on. That's good enough. And you got yourself a basic value steady. A little overstated, my lights are a little bit bright. We certainly could put more detail into it. I think one thing I'll do just really quick, and we'll be done, is if you see how light the rocks are, they won't stand out that light unless you knock back the ground a little bit. So we'll take the whites off the ground here. Leave it pretty darn bright on the rocks. I like that better. Like, I'm not sure we need this white rock here. Maybe in the finish, I'll put more white rocks around here. I don't like a a white right on the edge. If anything, I would want that darker, I think. But I like that better, so. All right. So as you can see, the value study with a brush is easily, just as easy as doing with the pencil. And it also gets you into the mood of doing watercolor. So I'm thinking, maybe we should just start doing them this way. You don't have to though. You can really, you could even do it with a marker if you like. Totally up to you. Okay. So I'll go ahead and do the
Where's the picture of the tree? I'm not seeing it.
It's do you have any of the pictures? Monterey one?
No.
You don't have any of the pictures on your email?
Well, they aren't numbered.
Oh, okay. Some people, okay. Well, I gave you 3 pictures.
In the email?
Yeah, who am I speaking to? I'm sorry.
There.
Claire? Here, let me forward that to you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. That should be coming to you.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. Oh, okay. So I'm going to do another one. I'm just going to set up my frame here. Maybe a little bit longer on this one. And you can draw in any color you like. We could just draw this thing out very lightly. No reason why we can't draw it out in the same color, but you could use other colors if you like. I'm going to start my land off down here. Pretty light. And then remember we put those hills in. Like that. And then very much in the same manner, I just kind of block out where I want my tree to be. Otherwise, your tree can just go sprawling all over the place. I want to just contain it first. Something like that. I'm just going to go ahead and use something kind of brownish here for the tree limb. And this won't be the darkest color.
Are you doing another value study or is this your real draw enemy now?
Now this is a color study.
Thank you.
And then we'll do the painting off this. This is mainly just for color. So I'm thinking I want to use something kind of reddish brown in here. So that's a pretty gray trunk, and I want to just push the reds and yellows, and maybe I'll just add a little more yellow to it here and there, making it sort of orangey. I'll pull it down here. Then you can use something greenish. Up in here, as I put this in, just kind of green. And what I do is I just throw it all in about the value of the light first. Then I'll come back and hit my darks. There's certainly many different other ways to do this. But the reason I do it this way is because I can contain my masses better. I can see the whole kind of shape of the tree. I mean, the foliage. See, I can see that whole shape now. It's all laid out for me. Rather than seeing it in little pieces of light and shadow and all this. And I have some over here too. I can see, you know, I'm going to come back and hit some stronger yellows in it. And I'm just using a little cad yellow right into that. That was Prussian blue. So the green I used was Prussian blue and a little bit of cad yellow. Now I'm using a lot more cad yellow. I just wanted that more in my lights. And this one too. You know, let's say, remember earlier we were talking about that little rock. So we have that little rock right here, which kind of does add a little interest. I'm going to add a couple more little rocks behind it, maybe one in front of it. And then I'm going to use kind of a dirt color. The way I make dirt is I just make myself up an orange, red and yellow, and add a very little bit of blue to it. And that usually does the trick. Kind of it's a dirt color. I'll just paint it right over. I'm going to paint some little grasses in there too, but I'll paint it right over the dirt. Maybe I'll do that right now. Just get those yellows and greens in there. Because we're going to put the rocks right around here. So you notice how I'm not caring whether it just flows all over the place. It doesn't matter. It's a color steady. Just note though that oftentimes it ends up being really great stuff. Now, I don't know why I didn't do the background first. I just didn't. So sue me. I'm going to do the mountain way back there. And it's kind of a dusty color in the light. Very much like the dirt here in the foreground. I'm just going to add kind of a dusty color in it. I'm seeing a lot of lavender in the shadow. No, I'm thinking I want those mountains bigger. Nah, it's fine. We'll put some clouds in. Let that dry up a little bit. And maybe ultramarine blue for the sky, or any kind of blue you like. Cobalt blue is really good. Pretty dark. Just use a little bit of water. Like that, we do get a lot of clouds at the base. Right behind the mountain. So even the lights on the mountain, if you look how much darker they are than the sky behind it, I could still go quite a bit darker on this. So I'm gonna go a little bit stronger on this value back there. And while that's drying up, let's go for some shadows up in here in the tree. Now, of course, what we're looking up there is kind of a black shadow, which is kind of boring. Certainly could use black, and it's probably going to work, but it's going to give you boring, okay? I forgot to leave a little area for my little light branches there. Those sometimes you can put in with gouache too, but I'll paint around them. Okay, now we're coming with a dark, and how about instead of black, we use magenta. Squeeze some more magenta out there. Magenta and a little bit of Prussian blue. So, same dark value. It's a value sketch, but a nicer color. If you really want to, you just go ahead and push that magenta in there. Have a nice little accent. See, it's on the bottom of the foliage. See, all this foliage has a top side and a bottom side to it. Then you can just play with the edges. And our tree branches have some dark in them too. You could pretty much go ahead and use the same color as I used in here. Any color you like would work. You could even use straight ultramarine blue on this. Watch, I'll do that. Just remember, if the value is right, the color, you can use any color you like. I'll use a blue in there on my branches. Why use blue on branches? Because it's more, if you use the gray that's up there, it'll be right. It wouldn't actually matter even if you painted it green, it would be right. And that's why the rule is that the value is actually got more power to it than color. Because if you get the value right, you can use any color you want. See, if we don't get the value right and we get the color right, it'll be off. But as you can see, I'm using an ultramarine blue. I'm getting some extra, pretty sort of color to it. And getting the value at the same time. I call that yummy. Okay. Starting some dark down here. So remember, your branch has a light side to it and a dark side to it. This big tree trunk has a the bottom to it, and it's pretty dark. Right. Take some shadows on those rocks. I'd probably go in more of the blue family. I am actually seeing some blue in those rocks. But I'd paint blue on them anyway, just because the sky, they're a really light rock and they're outdoors, so the sky's going to influence that color, which might normally be kind of gray in the shadow. Because white doesn't have any color of its own, remember, so it takes on the color of other things in the shadow mainly. And it will, if you can see the warmth in the light, you'll take on the warmth from the sunlight in the light part of the shadow. Shadows on the ground. Those little shadows way back here, they're lighter. Very light back there. And then we have the shadows being cast onto the ground. I would stick with blues and violets in these shadows. So again, ultramarine blue and magenta can really create a nicer looking shadow for you. And while I have that on my brush, I'm just going to go ahead and hit some of these shadows on the ground here. They have a lot softer edges than these. That's fine. Notice how they zigzag back and forth through the shadows, and that's because you're looking over the land. Because if you were to look straight down on it, they wouldn't look like this at all. You're looking over the shadow, and you get these really big zigzaggy things happening. That's what happens with paths too, and almost anything that meanders back in space. Take some shadows back here and this little guy over here. So that really brings them forward. And there's some shadows on this mountain back here too. They're kind of lavender colored. It looks to me like the strongest color is really up in the tree. I mean, obviously the tree is the dominant thing. And let's just go around and hit some darks again. Any dark color will work, but I certainly wouldn't use black for this. It's just, you wouldn't believe, straight ultramarine blue with just a very little water in it can give you a nice dark. And when it dries, oftentimes it's very, very saturated for a dark. Ultramarine blue. But a lot of colors look good dark. Phthalo blue, I mean, Prussian blue looks good. A lot of dark in this tree.
Rob, when
Yeah,
you're using those blues, are they fresh out of the tube or reconstituted? Because I find the reconstituted paints just dry so much lighter.
yeah, because what happens is that you have to use a lot of water to break them down. And so by adding water to the pigment, now it's going to dry lighter. So, no, I didn't squeeze out new stuff.
Okay,
I'm using very, very little water though.
all right, thanks.
Sure. I sure need to squeeze out some new stuff. There's my Windsor Newton. And so my my good old friendly Holbein. Holbeins are very creamy too. I don't know if you've tried these Holbeins, Joe, but they're pretty darn good. But if I could get the same, I mean, if I could even get them better. Now there's another brand name, by the way, in France, and it's I think it's just called Chardin or something like it's spelled like the artist name, Chardin or something like that. I think that's what I saw anyway. I haven't used them very much, but one lady was using them and she said, "Could you help me with this?" And I used the paints and I just melted along with the paint. I said, "Ooh, this is good." I mean, I don't usually do that with paint. So that was another one that really hit me. Another brand name. Yeah, so if anyone wants to make a donation, I'm just, I've never seen that in the stores. I think you have to buy that from just probably online somewhere or something. All right.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah, Chardin. Never. All I could say is I would. Oh, and by the way, the thing I was really interested in was hers. Her paints weren't the kind that you buy in the tubes. They were cakes, the kind you buy dry. And I couldn't believe how they just melted on my brush. That was the thing I remember. Yeah, they just melted on. I couldn't. Usually they're really dry and hard, and you have to really work to get them going again. And usually that's the thing that separates the higher grade paints from the lower grade paints. They're more easily manageable, and I think they have good little preservatives in them. Well,
Rob, I think it's a V. It's Charvin.
oh,
that be
that's what
possible?
it is.
Okay.
Charvin?
Yeah, Charvin. Charvin.
Charvin. Okay. Okay. Thank you.
I'll put it in the chat. Hold on.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right. I think that's pretty good for a color study. Okay. Now, yeah. We're ready to paint. We're ready to. Let's do the drawing for our painting. We've got our homework done. Okay. Okay. So, you just figure out where your frame is. It's still, even though you might have a big piece of paper, I think it's still a good idea to lay out a frame.
Are you drawing with a pencil now?
Yeah, you know what? I actually could just draw with the brush. I'll just do that. Funny, I don't know why I do this. Most people that know me, when I draw, usually when I'm doing the demo, I usually draw with a brush. Okay. Yeah. All right, so let's just kind of
same picture?
Yeah.
It's the final time.
Yeah. So I just kind of frame it out first like this. Just to let myself know what's the general shape. There. And the gesture of this branch right here, which is just amazing. Maybe that's the whole point of painting this. I don't know. That branch is just amazing. These trees are just, I could just look, I just want to go look at them for a whole day. And we do have them here in Southern California. You don't have to go all the way to Monterey to see them.
Someone told me this particular tree is now gone, fell down years ago.
Oh, that's so sad.
It is.
And we used to have this sycamore tree that I painted a few times. And actually Janine and her husband bought it years ago. And then it was in the Rose Bowl area, and it was there. This was a very old tree. Remember the drought we had, and we killed it. I didn't see it. I mean, they tore it down. So sad. And that was just one of those trees where they look so stout and proper that they're probably, you think they're going to last for much longer than I'm going to live, you know, and then you just don't see the tree anymore, and you're going, why not? All right, so just kind of outlining the gesture of my tree here and paying attention to these shapes in between the branches, just as much as I'm paying attention to the branch shape. Thinking of that negative shape in between the branch. I'm telling you, this Chinese brush was made for this, literally made for this, because it looks so calligraphic. So, I mean, thank you, Henry.
Rob,
Thank you, Henry.
thank you. I did a study with this brush last night. You can see
Oh,
that strokes. Can you see it? Yeah.
oh, and you're in the gallery view? Let's see. I have to get it. I have
Oh, sorry, that interrupted you.
Yeah, I see. Beautiful. Wow. Yeah. That is beautiful. Very nice. Wow.
Thank you.
Oh, you already did your value study. Okay. Let me make sure I have my pen. Okay. Now, we have these other rocky things over here, which I'm not going to make a huge deal about. We have this, the rock I talked about up here. It becomes actually an important part of the painting, really, because it serves as a sort of a rest for the eye up here in the foreground, and how do you explain it? It kind of balances out all of this mass. You have something over here balancing it out. So that's why I'm going to put a couple more little rocky things by it. One in front, one in back, possibly. And this big rock over here. And a couple of rocks behind it. Okay. And I'm noticing on the ground here, I wouldn't mind maybe a bush or something in front of this. Just so the tree trunk doesn't just lead out. You know, maybe sometimes I'll throw a shadow over something too, but I'm thinking maybe something kind of brushy or bushy right in that area. All right. Oh yeah, very lightly maybe indicate where you want your mountain in the background to be. There's some cloudy things back there too, if you want to indicate where those are. I know my drawing's really light, but that's about all I do. And we are ready to paint. Can you believe it? It's amazing. I'm thinking, by the way, this is one of the reasons I do that framing thing anyways, dude. Because I'm needing a little bit more on this side. And I just want, I don't know, my eye is saying I want more over here. So that's fine. I gave myself a good inch over there, so I don't need that much actually. So that helps.
Question?
Yeah.
I have a question. So the way I'm doing my rocks in front of the tree, it looks like they're about to fall off to the right. In other words, are you making yours look very horizontal?
Yeah, the bottom. Make sure you got the bottom really flat.
Okay.
Even if they look like they're going kind of downhill, they probably are a lot flatter than you think.
Right, okay. I'll make sure they don't fall off my frame.
Okay. Now, let's start off with some big masses. Why don't we start off with the background first? I'm thinking, I just want to erase out these borders now that it's everything. But I don't know. And like ultramarine blue would be good. Cobalt blue, definitely good in the sky. I'm just gonna flood me in some beautiful paint there. I probably won't need any more than that. I'm gonna take it all the way up and over my, that way, if I do need to play with the frame a little bit, or play with the mat, I got plenty of space. Now, by the way, I'm just adding water to it. And if you like, you might want to occasionally add a little bit of like magenta or like a cooler red to it if you like.
Would it be okay to go over the tree?
Yeah, probably. I am. Yeah. Yeah, I went over my lines a little bit because even the lights of the tree are going to be darker than the tree itself. So I'm just tagging a little bits of yellow in there. I don't know if you can see it. Little touches. So I have blue, I have red, yellow, and blue in the sky, but not very much. It registers as a blue sky. But I do put little touches of other stuff in there. Remember to keep the eye activated. I'm just going to leave it white where the clouds are. Come into that later. And then on the mountain in the background, I'm going to make orange. Mix stuff up a really good basic orange and then add I think ultramarine blue to it. Yeah, ultramarine blue. That'll gray it. So if it gets too gray, I might, let's see. Let's take a test here. That one's right on. I don't know if I want it to be perfect though. Sometimes I make the actual color I really like. I mean, the actual color I see, and I get it right on. And then I'll say, you know, how would I like to tweak this? Do I want to see it bluer so it gets more passive and goes further away? You know, I'll ask myself little questions. I think a little more. I'm gonna add a little bit more ultramarine blue to my color. And I'm just gonna put it in.
Rob, is this the mountain?
Yeah. Just one color. And again, just like I do in the sky, I'll add little nuances to it. And, you know, here and there, add a little bit of, you know, I would probably add more like a cool red, which would be magenta or like a rose. And then maybe just a touch of lemon yellow because those are cool. That's the cool yellow. Just little hints, little touches. Too much yellow and red though, it'll come forward. So you don't want it to. You're still very much in a kind of a gray family back there, but just to give that color field a little bit of nuance. So for the tree foliage, I'm going to use Prussian blue and cad yellow and maybe a little bit of cad red. So by the way, I'll just show you. That's what my, see red, yellow, blue? That's, I mean, I literally mix them like that. So that's Prussian blue, cad yellow, cad red, right there. And I just mix them together.
With not too much water or moderate?
Like moderate, yeah, moderate. Everything in moderation. Even darker. Remember, we're just painting the lights. We're going to go over all this, so. As you throw this in, you notice how horizontal this whole plant is? Monterey pine, everything just sort of lays horizontal. So as I throw it in, I'm thinking about the horizontal quality of it. But here's another thing I like to do. I'll take the color and just mix it right there. Instead of mixing everything on the palette first. Sometimes you'll get little extra fun things that happen when you mix right on there. Ooh, that red was powerful. Put a lot on there. Maybe that was too much. Just to make a point. But I like to mix it right on there too, just to get the fun stuff. And I kind of wish I would have left a little more sky through here. That was nice. I kind of wasn't thinking of it. I don't know if I can get that back now. Maybe I can. I'll leave that like that and see if it works. I think it still works just fine without it. I'm using the side of my brush here to give me kind of a raggedy edge on the bottom, see? Using the side. Those white, and just these branches here, I want to paint around them. But as you can see, this brush on this paper, literally perfect for doing this tree. That texture of the tree is just perfect. Oops, I went right over the thing. Something's telling me, don't paint the sky through there. I wanted it. Darn it. Paint it right over it again. So I just dabbed it out. We certainly have lots of time to play with edges, but this is so fun. Okay. And so that would be my light value, believe it or not. We'll come in later with some dark. You could paint the darks right now. I mean, but I'd like to get all these other big values going first. Like a symphony. Okay. Big things first. I know it's really, you want to get in there so bad and get in there and start noodling. Noodle, noodle, noodle. Okay. How about the big dirt here and the big grass there? And I have green on my thing already, so. And I'm lazy. I have green on my brush already. So I've got green grasses in this area. You know, I'm going to throw them in with a dry brush like that. The side of my brush is how I'm getting that really loose edge. Maybe a little bit more yellow in that. The cadmium yellow. Wanted something right there. Oh, since I have it on my brush, I might as well put it over here on these bushes in the background too. Even though I know they're not this saturated, I think I'll just put them on like that. I'll come back and desaturate them by adding something complementary colored, like in the reddish area, and maybe a little blue to that too. All right, and then, you know, we even have some greenish stuff up here in the foreground, in which I will really hit myself some yummy yellows in there. And we got the dirt color, which is orange, and blue. And of course, a whole lot of water. I don't make all my dirt the same color. Sometimes I make it a little bit yellower. It's a great place to get loose with your paint. You see all these little places where I miss where it's white? A lot of watercolors look highly on that type of thing. Just because you did it in one pass. Sure, you could cover it up and get picky about it, but you could tell it was done in one swipe, and that's part of the spirit of watercolor. That's how watercolor really earned its wings and became a medium that was before looked at as sort of a you know, secondary medium. But the modern artists said, wow, there's no fresher medium than watercolor. It's the freshest. So oh yeah, there's some water down here behind everything too, isn't there? Kind of forgot that. Very light blue water. I think I drew my rocks up over there. Oh, okay. Oh, I have my rock coming way up here. I guess I let the water out. Honestly, obviously the water wasn't very important to me. I didn't bring that mountain down a little bit more. And okay, I'm going to go ahead and hit some shadows on that mountain in the background now that it's dry. They're really not very dark. They're just darker than what's next to it. So I'm gonna just throw some little shadows back there. And I might even be too dark on that. Although my experience tells me I'm dark enough. But the nice thing about watercolor is you can go over it again. So I'm going on that a little bit dark. Just add a little bit of water to it. Remember, the more water you add to it, it'll dry lighter. You know what? Since I have all this shadow color on my brush, why don't I come up here on these rocks in the foreground? Now they are darker than the ones in the background. So I'm gonna go ahead and just, I'm seeing a lot of blue grays in this. So if you take a little bit of orange and add it to your blue, you'll get a blue gray. If you'll notice, I'm putting my strokes really vertical on these rocks because they're standing straight up and they have a kind of almost a shelf to them. So you can really see it on this rock up here in the foreground. It really shelves down. So I'm throwing this on there vertically. Well, I really had a lot of rocks back in my. I guess I added a big extra rock up there. It works. I'm leaving it. Little rocks over here. They don't have to be a big deal. And they all have little shadows being cast on the ground. Extremely horizontal, like just draw very horizontal shadows on the ground like that. So many rocks, it's hard to figure out how many shadows there are. And then when we get up here in the foreground, these shadows even get darker. I'm adding a little magenta to my rocks as well. Of course, they have very horizontal shadows on the ground too. They're pretty dark. I'm just going to throw mine like this first, but I'd probably come back and hit those darker later. So I just kind of group the lights, group the shadows. Same on this rock here. Light, the shadow. Then I'll come back and nuance things later. Here too, this one I want a little bit of shadow over here. I threw another little rock over here in the foreground. And then throw little shadows on the ground. You see these little things I skipped, these little white spots I told you about? Sometimes they turn them into rocks. Is that crazy? Watch. I'll just do a little shadow on this like this. don't have to do it everywhere, but it works. They turn into, I'm telling you. My best secrets. Okay. Now let's put some shadow on that tree. Again, I'm going to go for more of a color in that shadow. I think I'm going to go for well, there's enough green on the tree. I definitely want to go on the blue family. So I'm using ultramarine blue and a little bit of magenta. Just gonna leave those shadows, the lights, I'm just gonna leave those white for now. Now, oftentimes on branches, you'll get a lot of shadow over the top of the branch because this, all of this foliage up here is creating a shadow over it. That's something to note because oftentimes, you know, you'll be making up branches and limbs and things because you just want one somewhere. So when you do that, just make sure you, where the foliage is right underneath the foliage, you want to hit a little shadow on those rocks, on those branches. And down here, I guess it goes all the way down in the shadow. I'm going to show you a little color theory too as we get into this. So try not, when you're throwing these shadows down there, try not to throw them in too dark. Because I'm going to show you a little trick. And it's not there, it's just a color theory trick. And all it is, all it's there to do is add interest. It's like all my other little colors there for. Let's get all these shadows kind of grouped first. And oftentimes, you know, when I might be ready to change colors, but I have a little bit of something on my color, so I might want to hit a little dark at the base of this rock. And that's just me using up color. I hit a little bit more into here. In the base of a lot of these, just because I'm trying to get rid of the brush, or get rid of the stuff on the rough. In other words, I make use of everything. It's such an artist way to live life, really. My gosh, I'm that weirdo with my head always in somebody's trash can. Like, oh, what I see over there? My wife doesn't always like that.
It's called being frugal.
Yeah, I know. I've just always had to be that way, but I mean, I actually enjoy it. I think it's pretty, I find it creative. I hardly ever get anything though, but I'm always interested in what is that? I could probably use that for something. But I don't have any room to keep all these things, so I 99% of the time I just
My girlfriend made $3,000 last month repainting old furniture that people ever gave her because they were moving to smaller quarters or stuff she found on the sidewalk
$3,000.
in a month. Yeah,
That's
good pay per hour actually, because the materials were, you know, old nice pieces of furniture. So
yeah,
she's been doing it a long time. She's been doing it about 7 years. I think.
good for her. I like to hear that stuff. Okay, so in the clouds, you might have some very, very light shadows. And remember, just like the foliage here, the light is coming from the right side, the upper right-hand side. So as it hits the clouds, you want to keep the upper right-hand side in light. And the lower stuff grabbing some shadows. And just think of it kind of like that. So I think of this whole thing as just a big ball. I'm going to soften this edge right here with just water. And I can do that same idea down here. From here. Just come in and soften edges. Lots of soft edges in clouds, so. In fact, I even see a little bit of blue in the sky over here. And the mind does the rest. You don't have to get them perfect. That's what impressionism is all about. I mean, there's plenty of recognizable forms in here, so we don't have to. Here's one of the problems that compositionally too. If you render out very realistic clouds in the background, that means you have to really render out your foreground, because those are supposed to be passive. So to make your foreground be more, be more of the theme of the thing, then you have to. So that's the way paintings go. The more information you put in there, the more information that you have to put into your focal point. If you don't put very much information into a background, and then you put just enough information in the foreground, it looks right. Everything's relative. Everything's relative. Now, you see how I did those clouds? All I did was I came back and I hit a little shadow in there and I softened an edge. Okay, that's the same thing I'm going to do with this tree. Come back, I'm going to use, I don't know what I used in my color, but something like very blue, I think. I'll use blue. Is that dark enough? That's just blue. This is the fun part. I'll just try and experiment and see what I like. There's a little Prussian blue. I put a little ultramarine blue in there. Even try a little magenta in there. Wow, that looks good. And in the same way I did the clouds, just darker values, I can come back here. I'm going to be careful around my little branches here. Just want to, and I don't want them to be that bright, but I want to just avoid them for now. And then I'll come back and put a little shadow over them. Well, pretty much all this shape is in shadow. You can get as crazy with as you want in the color. And you can just use the side of your brush gives you really random kind of dry brush edges. Sometimes I like to take some of this stuff right over the foreground like this, right in front of my rocks. Just letting the viewer know, hey, you know, this is in front. Real dry brushy. As I'm coming into the light here, I just don't want to hit any of this on my lights. I'm dry brushing then this in a very sort of horizontal manner. Like this hard edge right here, no problem, just a little dry brushing. You wouldn't believe how much the brush can do the work. It wants to. The brush has a personality. I mean, they really, you know, because of the nature of the shape of them, they really kind of take on a little bit of a life of their own. I know you're probably just wondering, Rob, the brush has a personality? Okay. No, but really, they do. They take on a little bit of a personality. Okay. And then, let's see. Now, of course, my rocks aren't white, and neither is the light on the tree trunk. Kind of a warm color. Both in fact, the rocks has quite a bit of yellow. Just an extremely light value though. But just to take off, they say that. What did I do there? Just a little bit of warmth. Not nearly as dark as the brown, but a little bit of warmth on the lights.
Oh, sorry, I missed, what color do you use for the light side of the rock?
I would use yellows and oranges, but if you use them pure, it'll be too saturated, maybe. Might be too saturated. So
Are you gonna do the same thing on the white part of the branches, the trunk?
yeah, I'll do the same thing on the trunks. They're a little bit warmer though, so I'm gonna add a little bit more red to them. Now, I did use just a little bit of gray in that warmth that I put on the rocks. Because if I get them too yellow, it'll just be right out of the tube and they'll scream for attention. So I'm gonna put a little bit more red in my color on the tree. And I'm also dry brushing this on so it'll look kind of barkish. Or bark-ass. A little redder on that one, maybe. A little bit of sky in there, a little bit of water in there. And a little bit of something yellow in there too. And that's a really bright tree. So if I want to gray that down, it's very simple. Just take a very, very subtle glaze of blue, just like the sky color, because we have orange here, right, on the trunk. So if I wanted to gray that down, I could just take a little bit of blue into it and just graze it down. I need to gray it down too much. And we forgot to put those big shadows across the foreground here. Ultramarine blue is good, just because it's already almost blue violet. But if you need it to be more violet, just throw a little bit of magenta in there. And here's a little trick too. It's trick time. You've seen me do this trick before, but what I'll do is I'll just lightly throw down some water first. Over the whole thing first, where I'm going to put my shadow. Don't do it too much because you'll start pulling up the color that you just put down there. So it's not everywhere. That's good. So watch as I put down my color, see? It has nice soft edges, just like those are. It's fantastic. And if you wait a minute, it won't bleed so much like mine is. But I like mine. I'm gonna let this dry a little bit. And then I'll come back with some other. I just keep my eye on it. And I'll look at it. I look at it at an angle. Let's see what the sheen is like. When the sheen of the paper isn't so glistening with, not totally wet, then I'll come back and hit a couple more of the smaller ones that look a little bit tighter edge. I keep filling it with the back of my finger. There is this long one over here to cast by the tree onto the things. Here, here. It goes up, and then it gets pretty big over here. And I put a lot of water over here. That's what happens with the Or boys, tricks. It's tricks and tricks and tricks and more tricks. I got more tricks. Okay, here's another trick. Roll over. So let's pretend that the light hits the green grass, and then you get a little bit of, see? Can you see that? A little bit of reflected light into the rock. Really. You see how I threw that little green in there? A little bit of reflected light into the rock. Because you could get oranges and greens and things like that into the rock. And it's a way to kind of wake up the color. You could even say that there could be green from the grass right on the underside of the shadow here in the reflected light of the shadow. Of this big tree. Reflected lights. Maybe an orange one, a little bit of orange from the dirt. And these guys over here, possibly a little orange, kind of yellowy orange. Maybe a couple little things of orange in here too. It just wakes up your shadow, you know? You can see a little bit in these guys back here too. Not very much. Not very much in the far away ones. You don't see it as much. But anyway, it's a great way to get color in your shadows. Shadows don't have to be this dead color. Even the light side of the rock has these little half tones to it. I'm just hanging a couple of those. Maybe a little crack, little fracture or something like that in there. You know, up in the foreground here, I hit it a little bit. I waited, that's still very damp, but I waited a little longer. See now how this is a lot harder edge of a shadow? Because sometimes you'll get the hard edge ones and the soft edge ones, depending on how close it is. Like the tree could be way up in here, it could be pretty close. So we'll have harder edges, and as it gets away, maybe back here it gets softer edges. It's all fun. Let's over here, let's soften that edge up a little bit. And now it's all the little stuff, you know? Like I was gonna throw these guys in shadow right here, these little. As they're going up into the tree. And I would, typically in a watercolor, the end is when you hit your darks. And even though I did hit a lot of darks in there, we know we're toward the end here because I'm maybe hitting some darks here. So I'm seeing some good darks right back here. You don't have to hit them black or anything, but. I'm using violet. I make the violet out of, again, magenta, ultramarine blue. I decided to add another rock to that, didn't I? Huh. Okay, right there on the bottom. Sometimes I just hit them really sparse like that, the darks. And then if I want to fade them up, I just use another brush and just fade up. But I'll leave that up to you, how you want that to look. And a little dark in there. It brings out that main one. The darks make a difference. Put little darks in here. I don't know if you see it or not, but I added a dark to the middle of my branch right here. So it makes the reflected light feel a little bit lighter. That's the core of the shadow. See, I could do it here too. I could come back over here and hit this a little bit darker right in the center. Not getting a ton of reflected light in there, but get that a little bit darker in the center. Then when I come back and hit my reflected light, makes that stand out a little bit more. They just call that the core of the shadow. I guess there was no choice. I wanted that little light coming through here, and there was just, I tried painting around that thing 3 times and oh wait, no, this is what it was, huh? Little light right here. Oh, that's my phone just about ready to go out on me. Plug this thing in. Okay, good. And my paper is curling up on me. I'm still using your clips, Heppel. I'll be using those clips for, I have these clips right here. You got rust all over them. I've had this clip for 30 years. They're great clips. Why throw them out? Yeah, now is when I just go around playing with little noogies. Typically you'll find little darks at the base of things. You don't have to put very much here, but a little bit of dark. A little bit of dark at the base of things. And you really start getting things to stand out. The shadows on the ground are pretty dark too, so I'm going to get those a little bit darker. That makes sense. Shadow in there. Like it's really dark down there. And again, just like I treated this tree, I could treat this tree the same way, but with lighter shadows. Watch. Oh, this is a ball. Okay, see, I just made like the letter L there on the left-hand side and on the bottom. Left-hand side. Now I just come back with a wet brush and loosen up the edges. And let the water do the rest. And that's all they are, really. They're just balls of foliage. This one up here in the foreground too. This is definitely the time in the painting where I like to step away and look for big, did I miss something really big? Because sometimes I do. I'm up close all the time. I might miss something big. A little dark. Hey. Sometimes the magic of paper towels. Sometimes it works. Sometimes you can hit it with a paper towel all day and then nothing works.
Robert,
Yes.
I feel like we need an hour just on how to draw a rock.
Yeah. Yeah.
Rock's tricky, boy.
And you know, that's a good, I'm glad you asked me that question. Here, I'll give you a little rock,
Oh, good.
a little thing to think about when you're drawing rocks. Okay, so when you're drawing rocks, think about cubes, okay? So let's say, you know, most people when they draw a rock, they just sort of draw the outside of it. Just kind of draw the outside of it there. And, or maybe they'll go like this. And that's a good place to start. Just remember the rock has a cube, like a cube. Let me draw kind of a cube here. It has dimension to it. Okay, so as you draw a rock, I mean, depending on how you want your rock to look, sometimes it's a good idea to just look at the rock, but you can, after a while, you can just make them up. Just give yourself like a top plane, maybe a side plane. And oftentimes, you know, they'll come back down. So you're giving yourself other planes to think about. And you know, so there may be, you know, this plane, that plane, this plane, over, up, and over. So there's all these different planes. So try to think of rocks as having like sides to them instead of just being flat.
Yeah.
So kind of that. Maybe, etc. Yeah. So when I'm shading this in, if the light's coming from here, I know that my shadows are going to go that way. This one probably casts a little bit of a shadow over there. And then you have a cast shadow on the ground as well.
Yeah, that's good. I mean, I never think of them as being as angular. Mine always look like potatoes. Right?
Yeah. So
They're
yeah,
just a little bunch of potatoes.
Well, we have, you know, in the Arroyo, we have a lot of potato-ish rocks because they get all rounded. So you'll want to think of some rocks as being round and some rocks as having facets.
Right.
I have to tell you, down in our Arroyo, we do have a lot of rocks that have, they're really round. So try to look at different rocks. I mean, you know, nowadays you can just download anything. But you know, a great little things, if you have some little rocks, maybe, you know, in your patio or around your house, maybe you use like gravel. Those are great. Just grab a couple of them and draw them. They have the same principles as the big rocks.
Yeah, good idea.
Yeah, they're really great. Just draw them and think of the different directions of the planes and how they would accept, how they would kind of accept light. And then the other thing with rocks is that oftentimes you'll get at the base of the rock, you'll get lots of grasses and little branches and weeds and things like that. Oh, I'm sorry. Whoops. Little branch. And then you'll get another one that possibly overlaps. Something back here. And then it'll have grasses and weeds and things along it. I know I'm just outlining them. I'll show you. And oftentimes, you know, you don't even know. You might even have another one in the background here. Just kind of. Remember, at the base, usually you have a lot of dead leaves, twigs, whatever, all kinds of twigs and stuff and little flowers and all that. And then wherever your light's coming from, let's say the light's coming from this direction, then the shadows are going to be back all over here. So I'll just.
And Rob, what do you think is a good color for rock? What color paints do you mix together?
Well, it depends on your rocks. I mean,
I guess a gray rock.
yeah, we have a lot of gray granite rocks, but you know, if you go to Utah, you're going to get a lot of red rocks. But even go down to Eden Canyon and look in the river, you'll see like yellow rocks, blue rocks, red rocks. They're very different.
So when gray,
yeah, I mean, yeah, they're usually you know, they're a grayish color because they're earthy colors, but I don't know. They're fun, and it's worth your time to go out and just draw little piles of rocks. Absolutely. I know what I was going to do here.
Thank you. That was helpful.
You're welcome. Sure.
Yes, thank you. Thanks for bringing that up, Monica.
Yeah. Well, you know, if you have any questions like that, you know, I put a lot of stock in drawing rocks, weeds, and paths. You can draw rocks and weeds and paths. They're in so many different landscapes. I mean, you should be good at them. Something you want to spend some time with. It's a good thing to.
Rob, I just have a comment on your rock because I coincidentally teaching the class based on a Chinese classical teaching book called the Mustard Seed Garden Manual of Painting, in which they have these formulas of rocks exactly like what you have drawn. And I will show you. Yeah, I would like to exchange handouts with you after the class so we can show each other's perspectives. And they call it 3 faces of rock because we believe the rock has a life, just like a demon's or devil's face. And each stroke has a life of its own. So we use very calligraphic contours. I just amazed by how your principles agree with what I've been studying.
I am too. That's great to know.
Yeah. So tomorrow this time, I will broadcast on YouTube. If anybody has interest, just checking my channel.
I would.
He teaches the yin yang of rock.
Yeah, we call it yin yang. Like Rob just shaded the same way we did. We don't care the light source. We just put it in the second part of the plane, and we do have, yeah. I think it's very helpful. Yeah.
Can you send a link?
Yeah. I'll type my my channel. Or you can go to Blue Heron Arts and click on the link on YouTube.
Okay.
On the upper left-hand corner. Yeah. Great, thanks for showing the seal again.
No, I have one more thing to say about rocks. Obviously, I spend a lot of time thinking about rocks. One more thing to say about rocks is that if you can think of this as a mountain, okay, I'll be really ridiculous about it. So this mountain is like, let's say this is like 10,000 feet high, way up on top of Mount Wilson or Mount Baldy. Okay. That's the newest mountain. Okay. That would be the newest mountain. Okay. That's going to have the newest rocks, and you're going to have really jagged rocks up high. Then as you get down toward, let's say 5,000 feet or something like that, you get a lot of mountains they're rounding off as they go down both sides. This is like a cross section of a mountain, okay? We're looking at it from the side view. As if I cut the mountain in half and we're just looking at it from the side. So we have these more rounded off rocks, let's say about 5,000, and they're less jagged. They're more rounder, but they're still pretty jagged. And then as you get toward, let's say the foothills, and as you get toward the foothills, they'll just tend to do this kind of thing. That's the way I think of rocks. So as they roll down the mountain, as they roll and they roll and they roll and they roll down the little rivers and such, they come down and then they end up like, let's say in our arroyo. Just look at Eden Canyon. But by the time they get to Eden Canyon, they're all ground. We're way down here. You're getting really round rocks down here. So the jagged up at the top of the mountain, rounder down here. You still will have jagged things down here because rocks will tend to break. But most of the rocks down here and down in the arroyo are rounder. Yeah, thank you. Like potatoes. That's why we draw so many potatoes. It's not your fault. But look at the rocks as they get all the way down to the ocean, right? Don't they get those perfect little round shapes? Because they're all ground down. So as you get down to the ocean, now you get these just perfect.
Yeah, and all the little river rocks are like perfectly smooth and kind of ovalish.
Yeah. So just think of it like that, jagged up toward the top and more round as you get toward the bottom. It's interesting to think about. That's something I haven't actually heard artists talk about before. I haven't heard anyone actually say that one yet. Most of the time I just hear artists, and most of the time artists talk about the jagged rocks, and I've had to say, hey, I draw rocks all the time around my house. They're all round. So they're not all jagged. Sometimes you got to get up on your mountain to say those. Now the other thing about our beaches is that we have this volcanic rock. So you will get these extreme jagged things as well as the roundy things because the jagged rock, that didn't come from the top of a mountain, it came from, down below. So that's why it's getting jagged. Totally different reasons. It's all interesting, but when you think about the science, it really helps you to understand. Okay.
Rob, Charlene, I finished mine, Charlene, and I mailed it to you.
Let me see. We've got.
Rob, that is very smart to relate to the rock shape with the elevation and the age of the formation, the geographic history. That's a very, very smart. And I think the trees also have to do elevation, obviously, from pine to jungle to desert. Yeah.
It's so funny where my mom lives. She lives at about 3,500 feet, and it's right before you hit the pines. She's still got all the oaks, but she's got kind of a blend of, there's some pines and some oaks. You come out of the oaks and you get into the oaky pines, and then you go up to the pine. Weird.
So certain rock match certain vegetation. That's the rule, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So the pines like the jagged rocks.
Yeah.
Okay. We also have a distinction between the earthen rounded hills, like you described, and the Rocky Mountains. I didn't think it has to do with the same mountain, but we have a distinction between the north school, northern school, because in north of China they have the bare rock, and in southern China with more earthen hills, like what we live here in Roland Heights, around those kind of round hills.
Those rocks in the Chinese, the Chinese garden, they look like sculptures.
Oh yeah, that's another that's the very topic I'm going to discuss tomorrow, which is called the Scholar's Rock. Yeah, it's because the Chinese scholar amateur painters, they're also poets and the calligrapher. They believe there are two kind of subject matters. Those who have consistent shapes, unchanged shapes, like those you can define, and those they don't have any shape, certain shapes, like those strange rocks. So they call that more artistic or more abstract in the ancient world. So you can create, basically it's your mind. You can imagine, what is so you can be free to paint. So that's the highest level of creation, to paint those strange rocks. So there's a rock that was auctioned for $50 million, which is set the record. It's a strange rock with bare trees, believe it or not.
You're kidding me. Wow.
Maybe I could. Yeah, that's tomorrow's the topic I'm going to discuss. And later they collect those rocks. Yeah, they even treat it as a deity to worship.
Yeah, I'm thinking those. Yeah, I want to. If you could give me that that link, I'll send it to everybody.
Yeah, if you let me see.
Okay.
Yeah, sure.
So shall I start? Sure. They start critiquing, and you guys can just keep working. For those of you that want to get critiqued later, just keep working.
Okay, I'm going to sign.
Okay. I had to drink something because my voice is going south. Okay. Let's see. How about Betsy first? And let me put you up here.
I said it's two.
Yeah. Did you want me to do the second one?
Yeah, the better. I added more color to it.
Okay. All right. Did you guys see all that? All right. Let's see. Okay, let me get my little drawing tool here. Okay. All right, nice looking composition. What do you think?
I like it.
It is. You see how these the way when you put down these horizontal strokes down here, it really makes the land feel like it's kind of going over and over and over and over back in space,
Mhm.
because that's the way land works. Okay. Yeah, nice values. So I can see now. I see in your sky. I can feel this kind of lavender and this blue. You've got some nice variation in your sky. I would like to see more variation in these colors here and in the light too. I'm not really getting a sense of light and shadow here.
Okay.
One thing you can do is just take a little water
Mm-hmm.
and lift that a little bit. Just lift up a little bit. Let it dry, and then glaze over some yellowy greens on the top.
Okay.
Yeah. Do we really get this kind of like a? You could think of this whole thing up here as having a side to it,
Mm-hmm.
and kind of a top to it. I know that looks really weird, but there's this side to it. Actually, our vantage point, we're actually seeing more of the bottom. I think I should have drawn that.
Mm-hmm.
You're catching more of the side. So like, let's say this is the side, and we're getting more of the bottom to it like this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So think of all this as doing that. All of this kind of doing that right here. Then you got the side plane and the top plane. So really strike some nice light on this top plane. There, here,
Okay.
kind of seeing under that, you are catching a lot of, so that means the light is from the top and a little bit in front of us. So that's why you were catching all of this in light. I could get this in green.
Yeah. Well, I was trying, see the little yellow I kind of put on the right side. I was trying to.
Yeah. That's a little too light then.
Okay.
So right now, I would just leave that because it almost looks like residue or something. So it's so light.
Mm-hmm.
I would leave that, pat this down with a little bit of water, like just this area right here,
Okay.
and then come back with something a little bit lighter, yellowy greenish color around there.
Okay.
And then you'd be surprised. On dark values like this, you can get away with moida. I'm telling you. Moida.
Okay.
Okay, then I would go over here too and give this one a little more of a shadowy side to here. Yeah, a little deeper shadow. So isn't it weird how I take this bush and I look at it like, let me draw something brighter here. I look at the bush as if it has flames to it.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of strange, I know, but it will really help you because now we know if the light's coming from the front, but mostly from the side, but from the front too, and you're going to get light up here, and you're going to get light over here. And you could just use what you have, because this is a pretty dark thing. You could just use what you have as the light and come in over on the shadow side with this nice and shadowy here, and then you'll get a cast shadow on the ground. I see you got that. So, and then the rest is just the way you play the edges. It's weird, but it works. very, very theoretical. Okay. And then, you know, this kind of gray color in here, I wouldn't mind seeing a little bit more of something, you know, a little bit of blue in your dark. You could still put them in there too.
Okay.
And if you wanted something red with a little trick too, you just throw the little tiniest amount of white in. You can get away with some other colors.
Okay.
Throw a little bit of white in there, a little bit of opaque in there, you wouldn't bleed. You can still see through it. It'll kind of wake up these colors a little bit.
Okay.
And I'm thinking this, yeah, this is your cast shadow right here from the tree.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Maybe a little bit darker, like this value right here.
Okay.
That value more in there. It's small things. All the I'm asking is that you do a little bit of light up here and then vary your color.
Yeah. I'm adding some red right now.
And you know how to do it because you did it here. So it's not a question of you not knowing how to do it. I know you know. That was a lot of no's, huh? You know how to act because I know you know. Okay. Okay, I think we know. Okay, I'll move on. Thank you. Hey, you went vertical with it.
Nice.
That is nice.
Looks
Why
great.
does this look Japanese to me? I don't know why. Maybe it's just the tree. I don't know. So I'd say right away, I'm thinking maybe the foreground needs a bit more dark in it. By the way, your composition is just beautiful. I love the burst of orange in the sky. Beautiful.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. I'm thinking maybe if you hit some darks, you know, especially right up underneath things, a bit darker. It'll just punch this more up into the foreground. Some of the, maybe even the shadow here. I mean, I don't like black, but I don't have anything very dark. You know, something darker and bluer maybe in your shadows possibly.
Okay.
I use something bluish on a whiter type rock, a rock that's mostly white, is because it'll accept a lot of color from the sky in the shadow, oftentimes, because it doesn't inherently have any color of its own, so it takes on the color of other things. So you can have yellowy, orangey rocks in the light here, and then bluish in the shadows. It really works. Yeah, I just think it needs a little more contrast up here in the foreground.
Okay.
Yeah, punch a little dark down here. In places like that might not receive very much light. Maybe at the base of the rock. At the base. Think about those.
Oh, yeah.
And that's very typical of a watercolor, not to hit your darks. And believe me, I'm using black, but please don't use black. I mean, use something dark. I don't have
I know how to make
red here. Just because I mean, you know, sometimes black can look good too, but just because it doesn't take that much imagination, you know. Also, another thing is I wouldn't mind, and I'm going to use black here again, but if you could hit a little more shadow at the base, underneath all this, you got enough shadow there. And I think this would cast a shadow over there, but something nice and dark underneath, I think will really get this thing to, it'll give it a light and a shadow. A little light and shadow.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. This is too orange for the rocks, but that was what I was talking about. Okay. All right.
Thank you.
Okay. Marie. Okay. That's a cool looking tree. You know, I like how you brought it out of the composition too. You know why? The reason I like that is because she makes use of this sort of this corner, this negative shape of the corner here. So she gets a really nice little negative shape out of that. That was a good move. Right away. Okay. Again, and you know, I might not be seeing all the color in your shadow, so I'm not sure. But it looks kind of like it could use a little bit more color in your shadow. Okay. Things that are, you know, usually on the cool side in the reds and blue family, because we already have enough yellow and green up in here. You wouldn't believe though, you can come back into this, and you wouldn't believe how much you can get out of it.
Like throwing some red in it? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I mean, the little trick there is take a little ultramarine blue and throw a little bit of white in it. And that'll make it semi-opaque, so it'll make it so you can see in it. And then do the same with the red. A little bit of white in it. Like little touch of white in it. Not very much. I should probably just show you, huh? Here, do that, Rob. I don't know. How big? Here, let me get out of here. And you guys are looking at mine now, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now what? If I take, this is just white, Winsor Newton white gouache. Okay. If I take that, so I just take a little bit on my brush here. That's probably way too much. On the brush, get some of that off there. And I'm going to add ultramarine blue, let's say. Really wash my palette good now. If you do use the white, just remember it'll invade all your other colors. So when you're done, make sure you use, make sure you really wash it off your palette. Otherwise you'll get cloudy colors. And if you like that, then don't. But see what I did there?
Mm-hmm.
Here, I'll really get up close here. So I lightened it up. Now the more, I can add a little bit more of the ultramarine blue. I can add that to it. And basically I've made almost gouache now. But if you put it on relatively thin, you can still see through it like this, just kind of cloud it in there. Get these beautiful colors. Great way to kind of wake up the color. And you can do the same thing with magenta or any color, really. Just a touch of white in there will really, it's a lot of fun. And it's easy. Okay, we get back to the other. I'm gonna screen share that. Okay, and so I might try a little bit in your rocks too. They got a little gray. So, I mean, just leave the gray and try a little bit of that blue. Just knock in a little bit of blue here and there on the rock and watch it. It'll just wake up the color. You can try maybe a little bit of something yellowy orange or green in the shadows here. You're just, this is a really nicely drawn painting and your values are really great. I'm just trying to do something called, it's my little thing, I just call it waking up the shadows. Because they've gone a little bit, you know, because they don't have much color to them, we just wake them up by adding a little bit extra color to them. Other than that, I mean, this is a really nice piece.
Well, what bothers me, I'm thinking, is the bottom left corner. My eye just sort of slipped out. So I'm thinking I should have put like some big rocks or something down there, but I don't know.
Yeah, you know, sometimes I just put a shadow there.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, a shadow works really well.
Okay.
Watch, if you just, let me see. If I just throw something kind of like a shadow in there, or maybe I mean, I hate to use black, but
Something like a darker value, is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
I noticed you're using a little like violet. I think I'd probably use something like violet in there.
Okay.
All right. I think you got a nice looking piece in there. And I'm really, that was a great move, that negative shape.
Oh, thanks.
Why didn't I think of it? Darn it. Okay. That's why they made mats. You can always take your mat in there. That would ruin my signature. Oh,
Oh, no.
darn it.
Well, thank you.
Welcome. Okay. And game. Let me get my drawing goal thing here. All right. Again, good values. I would come back. I mean, this is a nice piece. Nicely composed. Let's see.
I've already changed things. as I can see.
What was that?
I've already changed some things as you were talking to others.
Oh,
Like I
so
tried to get some of the darkness out of the tree.
did you? Okay, so what I give it a little bit of light on the top here.
Yeah.
Is that what you meant? Yeah. Okay, so that's all I was talking about. Yeah. A little bit of light up in there. And you can do that by just scrubbing it out a little bit. Just get it wet, and then you can pull it off with a brush. You can pull it off with a paper towel. And then let's see what else. In your shadows here too, I might do the, you know, my little shadow trick I just showed you with a little bit of color. Yeah.
Hey, you there?
There you go. I can see a little bit of blue in your shadows like this. Maybe, or like this. Just a touch here and there. Okay, think about this. Any plane that's facing upward, that's supposed to be an arrow.
Yeah.
But any plane that's facing upward like this might catch a little bit of sky color in it. So that's why I hit the blue in the shadow of the tree, because a lot of it's facing upward. But any plane like this part of the rock right there might catch a little bit of blue. Whereas some of these planes that are facing downward, like the underside of this branch here, maybe under here, and maybe in there, maybe even the bottom side. I never thought about hitting some orange on the bottom side of the tree. Probably would get that to work.
Right.
Orange and possibly green too from the grass. You could throw green into these, but the light comes down. We have this sort of yellowy light that comes down from the sky. Boom, it mixes up with all this stuff here, and then it shoots back up into things, into shadows. So that's why I'll hit a lot of oranges and yellows and greens in my rocks. Like the bottom side of the rock right in here.
Right.
Isn't that weird? And then as the rock turns up, I might hit some blue right up in here.
Right.
Wow. Huh? I mean, it's the way to get zing, real zing in your color, and it works. It works. It's believable because it does happen.
Yeah.
Sometimes when you see extreme circumstances, it'll happen. Sometimes you need to force it a little bit just to get a little bit more, because sometimes what you're looking at is already kind of boring. So we push a little color theory to get things to work for it. All right. Yeah. Through there, through there. That's about it. Let's see. Yeah. Maybe the shadows on the ground here could be a little darker.
Yes, sure, yeah.
Some of these. And if I wouldn't put them in black, I'd probably put them in something like violet or something.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I have one question.
Yeah.
The right side of the tree, there's a little branch that goes nowhere, and then, and then that space is sort of nothing. Do you think the tree should come overlap the mountains, or should it go down to that branch?
Well, right now your tree isn't, I mean, it's not, it's not creating a tangent right here.
Yeah,
So I think you have enough things that are overlapping, like the branches here and this over here. I don't know. I think what it's going to happen is it's going to end up looking very much like this side over here.
right, yeah,
So I think it's fine the way it is, but I would take this branch right up and into the tree.
right, okay,
Because I'll even do something like that.
wonderful.
But yeah,
Thank you.
yeah, if it's bugging you, you got to do something about it. No, it really didn't bug me that much though. Just so you know, was major thing. Yeah, if those are the things we're thinking about, then you done good.
Thank you so much.
All right. Welcome. Sherrill.
Somebody needs to be muted.
I know I can't mute everybody though. Well, can I? Or
No, you can ask them to mute themselves.
I could. I don't know if they can hear me because they're on the phone.
That's okay.
Or I can.
Sorry about that.
How do I do that? Oh, okay. Probably is a way to do it. Okay. Well, looks like you got some gouache in here, huh?
Well, I'm using Krita color and it's a mixture of kind of between wash and water.
Oh, really? So it's got gouache and watercolor color.
Strong paint.
I don't know why that's doing that.
But the tree kept growing.
Now, the tree will keep growing if, I know, that's why you remember in the beginning, I put it in a box. I kind of encompassed the tree. So,
Yeah, I understand that. It just went too far.
yeah, well, it's a nicely drawn out tree. I love the rhythm to this tree. You have a lot of, you really catch the gesture and the flow of this tree. It's got a very organic feeling to it. So that's more important in my book. I think the composition's fine. It's a little centered, but it's okay. And you did the same thing Marie did. You got this little negative shape up here by cropping into it. You got another one over here, but I'm glad that they're not the same size. See, if this were the same size as this negative shape, then we'd have a really symbolic looking tree.
You know, I think the painting started to make its own way.
Well, hey, that's when I feel like I'm not even painting it. And the painting almost makes its own mind up. I'm just kind of going, I'm like listening to the painting and letting it go where it wants to.
Yeah, this one
Sounds like you do that. You do that too, and that almost always works. even if the rules aren't right, it still works. Those are the paintings where the rules, according to the rules, things aren't right, but you're wondering, you're scratching your head because you're like, well, I like this painting though, it works. Because intuition is more powerful than any rule. It is. So I really like that idea. The painting was just taking on a life of its own and going on its own way. Believe me, that's the correct way to go. And you just hit me as a very intuitive person anyway.
You know, I've been painting a long time with different mediums, so I kind of get.
All right, don't tell me you're a stockbroker or an engineer or something like that.
I'm a real estate broker.
Really? Oh, that's fun. Wow.
The mid blue in there, huh?
I got some questions for you about real estate. No. Yeah, my favorite part of your painting is right up in here, the way you handled all this foliage. It's a painting all in itself, right up there. Now, did you put this white over here because you wanted it to feel a little further away?
No, I wanted a space between the dark and the light because it was all dark over there. And so I liked
You
I
did that.
thought the matte. I wanted it to match some of the other whites in the painting.
Yeah. Yep. Well, that's definitely something I'll do too. Shoot holes in an area because it just got too dense. Yeah. And I might come back into some of your dark shadows here. Think about just shooting maybe a little bit of color in there if you like.
Yeah, maybe some ultramarine blue would be good in the painting.
Blues. I don't have the right reds. I mean, this is going to be ridiculous, but you know,
Maybe not.
that's an opera. Pink. You wouldn't believe how people could take a color like this and make it work in one of these paintings.
I may add some of that.
Yeah, you can. I mean, it'll work. As long as your value is right, it'll work.
I think that's a good idea.
You know, just maybe take a, sometimes something that I like to do is when I'm wanting something more out of a painting and it's just not giving it to me, I'll just take a color that I don't even think would actually work in the piece at all and scooch it around, and I can't believe it. And I watch the thing, it's almost, again, it's like I'm not even painting it. It takes on a life of its own, and I'm going, wow, it did it. That's what it needed. So that's something oftentimes that'll work for you.
Yeah, I think I'll try that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Bob?
Yeah.
You do that, does that become the focal point? Like if you really did have Alpha Rose right where you'd put it, I think I would go right there.
It depends on how much of it you use. Yeah.
Okay.
Depending on how much you use. Yeah. Oh. Which one is it? Oh. What's going on here? Katie, the next one? Let's see. Okay. Hey, Katie. Right away, nice color.
Okay.
Nice color. I see you changed your composition a little bit. Yeah.
Okay.
You rebel. I like these clouds too. I like the clouds. I like your colors. This would be what I would call a dominant cool painting.
Mhm.
So the cool colors are dominating the color, even though you have yellows and oranges. It's about three-quarters cool.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Is that okay?
Cool and about 1/4 warm. Is that somebody's bird I hear out their window?
Yeah, sorry.
Oh, that's you. Well, that's okay. That's okay. Leave it on. Now I could see something maybe a little bit lighter on these. A little lighter on the top here.
Okay.
Yeah. You got a scrub jay over there, huh?
Yeah, it's a mockingbird, and my cat is teasing the hell out of it.
Oh. Yeah, I can see a little bit. So, yeah, I would scrub that out a little bit and hit a little bit light on there. Now, I think I might bring this light right off.
Okay.
Yeah. Because it almost looks like it's ending here. Your form is ending here. And I think, you know, your darks, take the darks off here, right out of it. And then, just like I've been saying, a little more color in your darks.
Okay.
Blues and violets and things like that. You don't, I mean, good, nice. I can even see back here a little bit on the bluer side.
Yeah.
Then if you put lights on here, just make sure that the light are a little more, they're a little grayer. I wouldn't make them as saturated as these in the foreground. Keep them a bit on the grayer side. Yeah. And if you want to hit a little bit of gouache on here, you could. If you want to hit a little light on here, not necessary.
Okay. My rocks are a little strong for me,
A little strong.
little prominent, too prominent.
They can do that, huh? You draw one, you want to draw a few, then they just start crumbling, falling into big piles. I know. I've done that one too. Yeah, so what you can do is, I don't know if this will help any, but let's see. I might throw some like weeds and things here at the base.
Okay,
It'll just kind of nestle them in a little bit more.
sure.
Yeah, a little nestling there, and then a little bit of little green stuff, possibly. There. Cast shadow. Now, this side of the rock, I don't know if that would be getting as much shadow. I think this side of the rock would be more on the orange family because let's see, because we have you've got a rock here that has planes to it like this.
Mm-hmm.
So if the light's coming from here, then I think, this would catch light, this would catch light, but this would be mostly in shadow.
I see.
Yeah. Yeah, it's drawing those little planes, you wouldn't.
Yeah.
do it. Yeah. Crazy.
Okay.
That's it. Thank you.
Thanks.
And Prentice. Could we mute that now, Kathleen?
Yeah, of course.
Thank you. Okay. Are you there, Francis?
Yes, I am.
All right, pretty. Now here's an issue. I love these colors. Really light and very watercolorish. This is what I think of, oftentimes when I think of a watercolor, I just think of a lighter painting, more, and that has to do usually with you just don't have enough dark in it, and that's fine. Here's one thing that just compositionally, see how this is kind of rolling off the page? Yeah. Like that. So the way we do that is just take your bush here, take it a little bit up and over. You wouldn't believe it. It's called a stop. They literally call that a stop because it keeps the eye from running right out of the page. So I would just take that up a little higher. I think that's a very easy solve. I think where the mountains meet the ocean here, I think I would soften this edge. And that'll create a little bit more atmosphere. Like, make it feel like it's a little further away. I love your red, yellow, and blue in the sky. Very nice.
I tried to draw it with a brush today, and that's why the tree is just a mess. But I would do better if I had drawn it with a pencil and then gone back.
Did you draw it dark or did you draw it light?
Well, the tree I drew with pretty light in the beginning, but I should not have been drawing with brush because I don't have enough experience with that yet.
Okay. All right, well, the thing is that even at this point right now, you can still draw with your brush. I mean, you can come back and because I don't really have that much of a problem. It is a little bit in the center though.
I know.
What you can do is you can just crop into it. A lot of people just crop into it right here. And that gives you a little more asymmetry out of your picture. So,
Right.
Easy solve, right? Now,
Right.
I might hit a little more shadow. And when you hit that shadow, just use, unlike me, you use a better color. I just can't get it dark enough for that color. But something darker, I think, in there, I think would help. And then just use this as your light, because the light is pretty dark, actually. As you do that, maybe hit a little bit of something a little bit yellowy green on the lights, just to get a little more value of contrast out of it. Then I remember to bring that shadow down onto, because this umbrella shape right here is creating a little bit of a shadow onto the branches. So approximately this much of your branch will be in shadow. And then the branches have a stronger shadow on the left-hand side. There's a little bit stronger shadow on the left-hand side. And down, as you get down here, it gets pretty dark down in here. So, you know, you're actually in a really good place in watercolor because you're just having to make things a little more saturated and a little darker. And that's easy to do. You can glaze in the saturation here, and then you can glaze in your darks. Just like most watercolors, you get your darkest toward the end. So I just think it needs more dark, and maybe use a better color than black. Now, see, we have two rocks right here, right next to each other.
Yeah.
What you might want to try doing is adding maybe another one in the background here, kind of behind it.
Okay.
Maybe a little bit one there, and you could do, that might be enough. That might be enough. Sometimes, or maybe another one in the foreground here. I don't know. Maybe a little overlap here in the foreground there. You wouldn't believe though, a little overlapping. Like one behind it, maybe I'll put one back here. Maybe another one. Maybe one like this. And possibly another one over here. What you don't want is the same size though. That's the big no-no. Because look, if I put another one right here, that's the same size. Yeah, in general as this one. It just don't, I don't know. You gotta be different. Smaller. This one be larger. So that's something I would play with.
Okay.
And the difference between the light and the shadow here, I would make the shadows a little darker and bluer, but I'll just make it about this value. Yeah, so it separates. You have the light side and the shadow side. Just give yourself a really nice difference between the light and the shadow. Just really good shadows. Some little cast shadows on the ground. Otherwise, nice looking color. It's only a value thing mainly. A value thing, soften this edge, and I would bring this up a little bit, and you'll see that little eye stop right here will really help.
Okay,
Okay,
thank you.
thank you. Hey, Daryl. Hey, pretty. Woo! You got some blue shadows going on there. Those look great. And I agree with this. I don't think there's any reason to even include the water, really. I mean, I did include mine a little bit, but it didn't really seem to matter much. All right, this piece is working very nicely. Maybe I mean, it's got all the bone. You got great values, by the way. This is a little bit in the center. So again, you might want to, when you're framing it, you might want to pull your frame into here a little bit more. And that being the case, maybe you'll tickle your bush, take your bush into there a little bit more. So if you wanted to get this out of the center, I mean, you could also argue, take some off this side. That almost totally centers it. So the other thing you can do is take some, who's to say it doesn't come way off over here? Maybe it comes off. Then it's not so centered. So those are easy things to do. I think, again, maybe some more color in your shadow here. Easy breezy trick right there. And I think this could use a little more shadow back here. Not as dark as this, but a little more. And I think you're just about there. Yeah. That's about it. Not a lot to say about this piece. It's nice work. If you like, you might want to throw a little bit something, just glaze in a little bit of something very, very faintly. Just a touch of reddish things in there. Maybe a touch of something yellowy, orange, or something like that. If I can hit it. Think of these colors. But I mean very light too, very, very light. I can't get it light enough with this, but very light. Maybe if I hit a little bit of white over it, it would help. Yeah. Okay. Well done. Okay. And there we go. Here we go, Toby. All right. You got your style in there, of course. You knew I was going to say that, right? I got to say that. I got Toby's style down cold. Here it is. It's this. No, it's like a giraffe pattern. No. I gotta have you. That would be great to have you do a giraffe in this. Something with patterns, anything with pattern. This is great. This is great. So what she's doing is she's interjecting a theme. Her theme is the way she plays her pattern. And that's the way she puts her strokes down. So yeah, the color you're getting out of this this branch here is really nice. I like that. I like these broken statements of pattern. I think I probably told you Maurice Prendergast did that too, right? Maybe I've told you that many times, I don't know. Maurice Prendergast is the great impressionist painter who did these great watercolors. And they look a lot like what you're doing right back here. Very, very spotty and kind of nailed on the first try, and then you would just leave it. Anyway, I don't know if they're good or not, but they sell for millions and millions of dollars. So that's good enough for me. I think they're good. I think they're so good that I copied them in depth. I bought books on them when I first started. Anyway, nice color. I could see a couple more shadows. A couple more shadows on the left-hand side in here. A couple more little shadow groups.
Rob, the part that really disturbs me in this painting is the mountain in the background. I don't know.
A little red.
Yeah, I don't know what to do to fix it. I didn't take enough time to properly proportion it, so it's kind of too small. But
Yeah.
it's just has no depth or color or
you know, I think about, I don't know. I don't, but any suggestions on that?
Yeah, if you take something bluish,
Okay,
and then do you have white?
yes,
You take a little blue and white. I mean, I mix them together usually, and I put it on there very faint,
okay,
very faint. It'll make it feel like atmosphere. It'll kick your butt. And what's the coolest thing about it is that just put it on there and then let it completely dry, because it's not done until it's completely dry. So let it completely dry, and then you'll be amazed. It's like instant atmosphere.
great, perfect, thank you.
It's my favorite trick. A little blue and white. If you have enough color, that's probably the color the hill actually is, but it's maybe a little too vivid. So
Mhm.
what you're thinking is that you need a little more atmosphere in it. You're taking these colors you use right up in here, like the blue and then the white of the paper. You mix them together and you put them on top of it, which is actually what's happening in truth. In reality, what you're looking through is more water. That's why it looks further away. So you're literally mimicking what's happening, and then you just let it completely dry, and it's like instant atmosphere. I love it. One of my favorite little tricks.
You can do that with oil too, can't you, Rob, where you just do a
Sure.
thin, like
Oh, yeah.
the,
Yeah. But for some reason in watercolor, people think it's kind of illegal to use white. And well, nobody has a problem with it. Why would anybody have a problem with it? It's just a medium. Watercolor isn't sacred to me, you know. I look at watercolor as just another medium. That's all. So if you'll notice, I threw a couple little shadow patterns on the ground. That might help.
Yeah, that's,
Yeah, no big deal. Otherwise, this painting's working. Looking very nicely. It looks very nice. Okay. Yeah. Here we go, Louise. Is it Louisa or Louise? Louisa?
Louisa, I find.
Louisa. Okay. Is that Italian or what?
No, it's because my real name is Louise, and then nobody can pronounce it correctly. They say Louis or Lois.
Oh,
And so if I say Louisa, everybody here in Southern California gets it.
oh. Can I say it with a little vibrato? Louisa. Okay.
So this is not quite
Yeah.
finished.
You see the blue right here you're using right here? I see a little bit of blue in your color right there.
Yeah, there is.
I'd shoot a little bit more of that. A little more of that all over. I think that would work.
Uh-huh.
Now, the rock
Yeah.
being kind of the same, has a lot of colors in common with the ground. Makes it feel more like moss is on the rock, and that could happen. So, but again, you know, a little bit of blue in that might help. It's a pretty dark shadow on that rock.
Yeah, I
Now,
have.
by the way, sometimes rocks are dark. They're not always so bright. So you could take a little, maybe knock this down a little bit. No. Light side.
And I'm going to use what you just told Toby for the mountain. Mix a white and a blue for the mountain, perhaps. Or,
Yeah, I think that would really work.
yeah.
Yeah, because it's about the same colors as these in the foreground. And that'll work.
Yeah, because believe it or not, but I added a pale violet already.
Yeah.
And by the time it dries, it's just blah. It doesn't even show.
Yeah. So that should work. That should get it to feel a little bit further away.
Okay.
Pop little darks.
Yeah.
Pop little darks at the base of things.
Okay.
Little darks. Dark. And then see your edges, they're kind of hard edges around here. I do a little more, so like right here. See what you did right there?
Yeah,
Do a few more of those, especially around this bottom edge, and give me some more of those raggedy dry brush edges. I
okay.
think, oh, and here too, a little more dry brush edges around here too.
Okay. Yeah, I had a lot of fun with the Henry brush
Yeah,
in doing the tree, I must say, it was a lot
we're
of
just
fun.
gonna start calling it the Henry brush. You can't get out of it, Henry.
Thank you.
It's just the Henry brush. I know it's probably called like wolf or something, right?
Yeah, with a wolf.
Weasel.
Yeah.
He's a wolf. Okay. All right, so there. Yeah, dry brush away on that one. Just some edges. You know you're at the end of a painting when you're only making these kind of problems. You're adding a little atmosphere. Okay, that's no problem to do at the end of the painting. That's usually when I do it. And then edges. Edges are what I do at the end of the painting. And darks. Darks are the other thing I do at the end of the painting. So,
Thank you.
thank you. Wow, nice color. Wow. Let's see here. Are you there, Shelley?
I am, hi.
Hey, did you get that little stamp down there? Did you have Henry do that or what?
Oh, no, I have another Chinese friend who made that for me.
Oh, that looks great. Is that your signature, that S below it?
Yeah.
Because it feels like the land. I didn't even know it was a signature. All right, so your color is just, you guys, you see how she's taking this totally interpreting everything on this? That's what I mean. That's the difference between, looking at something and letting it lead you, and looking at something and you leading it. So she's really taking this in and controlling. Let's see here. Like her color. Look what you can do with the color. You can actually get that crazy with the color, and it still works. So there's the lesson right there, that the value is more important. See, she gets that nice deep dark blue in there. I kind of wish I would have used that now. But she gets that nice deep blue in there, and that's why the reason it works is because her values are right. And she could have used red in there, and see, look, she's using like magenta red down here, and it works because the value is right. So that's just a wonderful piece. Wonderful piece. You don't sometimes just leaving the lights pure white can be really refreshing, really light and refreshing. I know I added yellow to mine, but I think you might want to just leave that. If I were to glaze in something yellow on there, I don't know.
The thing is, the background is so light in value. I figured it would get lost, and I didn't want to go back in and mess around with the mountains.
I can still see the mountains back there because the color is different than the sky. It just looks like there's a lot of atmosphere, or maybe even fog. It doesn't bother me. I didn't even know you didn't mean to do that. It looks totally fine to me. You certainly got the whole what do you call it? Ellipse thing going today, didn't you?
That was the shape language for today.
That is the shape language of this piece. And the nice little compliment to that is that you've got these very sort of irregular shapes, complementing all of these. So that's interesting and fun. And that's taking liberties with your shape. See, remember, you guys, I'm gonna write this for everyone, okay? It's shape, value, color is. In that order. Volume. So she's taking liberties with her shapes, her values, her colors, and her edges. That's what you do in a painting. Take liberties with all of those things. Yeah, I really like how you accentuated the umbrella shape there.
They're just amazing trees.
Yeah, you really did a great job on this piece. I like this piece. I don't know if I would change anything really. You have any problems with it?
Yeah, it's not warm enough. It's too I kind of went crazy with the blues and cool shading colors. So
There's nothing wrong with a cool painting, but I see what you're saying. Yeah. Well, then you maybe come back in with some just light. You know what you could do is glaze a little bit of warmth in your halftones.
oh, that's an interesting idea.
So just as things go into shadow, just slip a little bit of warmth. I mean, I can't do it small enough for this. Let me see if I
Yeah, that's a great idea.
can. A little bit there.
And opera rose on the ground.
There you go. Thanks, George.
George does like that opera rose. It is a nice color. Yeah, little slips of yellows and warm colors along your halftone. Just see, I think that might help. Maybe a couple more slips of it down here.
Mm-hmm.
You
Yeah,
want it
good
down?
idea. That's a great idea. I like that a lot. And then I can crop all the stuff that's not working over on the left side and the off.
You want to crop into that?
Yeah, it's just kind of goofy. I don't know.
Yeah, I was gonna say maybe on some of these, maybe give them a not as dark of a shadow as this, but a little more, little.
Yeah. Okay, I like that. That's good. I will add that.
Yeah, the more you just leave it like this. I hate to say Dr. Seuss, but it'll look kind of Dr. Seussy.
I know. Too much stuff.
I mean, there's a couple of plein air painters out there doing that right now. I think they're former Disney painters. You can really see it in the painting, and they look beautiful, I have to say. So I'm not against it. I'm definitely for interpreting the shape. I would rather see artists do that than these photographic things I always look at. I'm much more interested in your piece than looking at a piece of photography. I mean, I'm trying to look at a piece of artwork here, huh? If I wanted that, I'd look at a piece of photography. So anyway, that's my statement of the day. Okay.
Thank you, Rob.
Wonderful. Yeah. Okay. Barbara. All right. All righty. Okay. A lot of the same things I've been saying. Look at your sky. It's beautiful. Wow. So this is the kind of activity that I want in everything. So even in your mountain back here, I can see some little hints of red, yellow, and blue. I mean, like your theme color is kind of a grayish brown. There's things that are leaning. Just blaze in a couple more colors back there.
Okay.
Don't make them too colorful or it'll come forward. I'm just thinking, just to jazz up the color a little bit.
Okay.
And same thing in your tree here. Let's see. Okay. Same thing in your tree here. A little more interpretive color. Then also the shape. See how the shape of this tree kind of all falls into a line right there.
Yes.
So then I would take a little bit out, a little bit in, a little bit out.
Okay.
Just go in and out with that a little bit more.
Okay.
An easy solve. And I'm looking for a nice dark, little bit darker under here. I can tell you hit that a couple of times.
Okay.
Darker under here and here. Just so they feel like, you know, you got a light on there on the top. Some shadow.
Right.
Shadow on the bottom. You got, see, now you got this right here, this light and shadow fine. And I wouldn't put saturation into this, or it'll compete with this. So I would leave that the way it is. One thing, let's see here. If you'll notice, all your rocks kind of fall into a line.
Yeah,
So occasionally I'll bring a rock out here. You know, maybe, you know, a couple of rocky things out there, possibly, maybe over in here. I know there's a couple of little piles of rock maybe over there too, whatever. Just to break that up.
Okay.
Yeah. I look for alignments. Alignments usually, sometimes they work. And you'll see artists like Degas intentionally put alignments in there I mean, I think he was just trying to show the world how good he was or something. I don't know. Because he's like, I can put alignments in a piece and still make it work. But I don't know. So I don't know. But I stay away from them personally. And let's see. And again, you give me some nice darks down in your areas. It won't receive a lot of light. Not the base of things, you know, deep dark into things. Give me some nice dark. And I would use, of course, like I said, blue or
okay,
yeah,
magenta and blue.
yeah.
Yeah.
In the magenta family and blue, any kind of blue you like, just so it doesn't go toward black.
Right.
Yeah.
I like marine blue. Okay.
Yeah, that'll work. That works
Yeah.
for me. Yeah. I love to tag a really interesting. That's when you go and buy your little special color. You know, go get a special color that you can go throw in a shadow or something like that. I do. Yeah.
What if I put some blue shadows along the grass area?
Yeah. Some of those little patterns.
Yeah.
Some of those little patterns of light.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I definitely. Looks like you did put a couple in there and then they faded on you, huh?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, they'll do that. That just means you added a lot of water.
Right. I put too much.
You didn't put too much water?
No, I did.
Oh yeah. So anyway, that I sure think that would help. Sure. Yeah.
Perfect. Okay.
Yeah. Along those lines, I would
Okay.
wet it first, and try not to get it too wet, and then throw in I throw my color in. I throw it in pretty strong, believe it or not. Pretty
Okay.
darn strong, knowing that the water is going to dissipate it. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Great.
Alrighty.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Henry, very nice. Okay, look at that. Your paintings always look. He leaves so much white that the paintings almost look like he used like liquid brisket on there or something. But he's just missing that.
I use the rough paper too.
Yeah, that's what the rough. See, the rough paper gives you this. That really nice rough. Did I just say rough? No, rough surface there, yeah. Wow, now by going this light in the background, and even look at his values back there on the mountain are really nicely controlled. Look at that. Even that dark on the mountain doesn't compete with anything in the foreground. And that just looks like you did it in like 5 seconds. Let's see now. I mean, nice rocks. Look at these. This is what I'm talking about. And then he throws this one over there just because it needed a little friend, you know, and needed a little help over here. Maybe two by themselves needed one off by itself. Anyway, that works really nice.
Yeah.
I could probably see a shadow maybe on the ground. Looks like you did hit something down there, maybe.
Darker.
And sometimes a little bit stronger shadows. Like this right here works really nice. Get the light and the shadow really nice on that. Occasionally a stronger shadow here and there. Sometimes I love it when something's casting a shadow from out of the pit, outside, coming in like this, and maybe goes up on my rock or something like that. Or do something like that. That can be, I call that a lead-in shadow. I like those. Those are fun. On the other hand, I'll use a shadow like the way off over here to keep the eye in to the composition, to lead the viewer's eye back into the composition. And I call that a stage light shadow, like a staging shadow, keeping the viewer's eye in on the action right here. I think that's all. A beautiful tree. Wow.
Thank you.
I kind of expect you paint trees in your sleep, so. Yeah, if you want, you know, a little more color in your color, you know, if you like, a little more color in the shadow would be fun. Anyway, nice.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. Look at those branches, you guys. Something to study.
I also sent you the ink study I did last night in the same email.
Yeah, oh, okay.
If you want to share with them.
Sure, real quick. I usually don't like to do two when I'm doing.
Yeah, you don't have to
I'll
critique.
just show you real quick. Oh,
yeah.
See that rock in the foreground, you guys? Wow. That's the kind of rocks you see at the Chinese garden.
Yeah, that's the scholar's rock.
Did you just do that? Did you do that out of your head?
Actually, I was studying the ancient masters. Yeah.
Wow, nice brushwork.
Thank you.
On your branches too, beautiful. That's a painting all on its own. Look at that. I love how you signed it too. Wow, that looks so. It looks. That belongs in a frame.
Thank you. Yeah, it's on the rice paper. If you look at the water, I use the traditional way of outlining it, the waves. Yeah.
It's gorgeous. Gorgeous. Beautiful.
Thank you.
Huge. Okay. Jane, nice color. And then if you wanted to, just like we've been talking with other people here, but if you wanted to hit a little bit of blue and white, way back here. See, because the brown in the background is very similar to the brown on your, on here. So if you hit a little bit of like blue and white, let me hit a little bit of blue back here first. A little bit of like blue and a little bit of white. It doesn't have to be that light, but it'll make that feel further away, even if it dries the same value. And you know what's funny about gouache too? Sometimes when you put it on wet, it dries darker than you would expect. So that's what I would do. I'd hit a little bit on all your mountains back there. And that'll keep them back a mile. They'll look another mile or two further away. Okay. Like I've been saying, a lot of the same things. A little lighter up here on this type part of the tree. A little lighter up here. A little more colorful in the shadows. Just my little color trick. And the same in the shadows in here. Maybe on these planes that are facing upward. You know? Sometimes I'll even bring the blue into the tree like the sky is actually coming into the tree here. And I'll lighten up my shadows here on the top. I don't know if that would happen in this case, but something to think about. A little bit more color in your shadows. They're getting kind of black. And maybe some stronger little shadow patterns on the ground. I can't get it dark enough with this color. That's the color I would want. I would want to get it maybe these kind of values. Those kind of values. Right there. I think that's it. I like this little shot of red you got in the sky right there. Occasionally those are nice. Pop them in there. All right. Very well done.
I will start this. Thanks for watching, everybody.
All right, Ethel.
That's me.
Thank you. Okay, look at the blue and see, that's just, it's nicer than black. All right, let's see. Yeah, now your mountains do feel pretty far away. Probably that. And I love watercolors where it feels like clouds without literally having to paint perfect clouds. Sometimes clouds are like this, but I like to do watercolors like this where it just kind of feels like clouds. And I could see maybe a little more dry brush edging.
Yeah.
A little more brushing. You're getting it like this, especially along this side over here. A little more dry brush edges on this side. It'll start looking like it's cut out. And you know, and then somebody comes along and does a painting where everything looks like it cut out and it looks great. So I know, please don't think that I'm thinking that's wrong, but I'm saying relative to everything else in this painting, it seems to me like it needs more dry brush. Nice blue shadow in here. This is exactly what I'm talking about. So just so you know. And I love the way, you know, this doesn't seem like a big deal, but look, see the way she treated this little bush? It's just got a basic shape to it with a little shadow